Oftentimes we wonder if we are doing a good enough job or are we stuck in our careers. I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. There are many people who feel the same. I hope this podcast brings you more clarity and peace of mind. Here we talk to people from different walks of life and who share their experience so we can learn from them. Following is the conversation with Hakan Yildirim. Hakan is the nicest and kindest person that I know. He has a very interesting career journey, starting from taking a pause from his job to travel the world, to participating in Toastmaster competitions and writing a book. I hope you find this conversation interesting. Let's go. So how was your day?
Was good. Was a long day. Was a lot of small things, not very difficult, but little many things.
Well, otherwise, you seem a bit stressed.
Am I?
Yeah.
I'm actually quite okay.
So, if I remember correctly, you travel across the world from a busy career. How did you decide that, okay, now is the time to do it?
So I was actually in the process of moving to another job.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the Netherlands. I wasn't very happy anymore living there. I lived in the Netherlands for 10 years. So actually I grew up in Germany. I moved there in 2004. And I was looking what I could do next. And there was an option to go to Sweden via this company. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't sure whether I wanted to continue this career because I thought I could continue for the next 10 years, for the next 20 years, and I would be just moving, slowly somewhere, and I wasn't really happy with that anymore. So I thought, actually, why not do some vacation, mm-hmm. And then try to get my head around what I want to do with my life. And then I read on the internet, on some travel blog, that you could do the Trans-Siberian within 3 weeks. So you would start basically from Amsterdam, but you would travel with the Trans-Siberian Railways from Amsterdam all the way through Central Asia, all the way to Vladivostok, Russia. And then you could take the ferry to Japan. And from Japan, you could just take the flight back. And that would be approximately 3 weeks.
Okay.
But then I thought, now you're in Japan, what you couldn't not go to South Korea. And then if you go to South Korea, there is Beijing, and then there is Shanghai. And well, if you go to Shanghai, you must go to Hong Kong as well. And if you go to Hong Kong, there's also Singapore. And then I thought, but that's not going to be 3 weeks. That's more like 3 months. So I thought, what if I quit? And then I could go for a whole year, just do a proper world tour. So that's what I did. I decided to quit. And I drew a theoretical line once around the globe and realized it's going to be something more like 1.5 years, 1 to 1.5 years. And then I started, and then I hitchhiked once around the globe, and it took me more than 1.5 years. It took 2.5 years, so exactly 777 days.
Wow.
So that's how this trip came to be.
But were you not afraid that once you go on this trip, it would be very hard to come back to working life? Will people hire you back?
Yeah, that's a valid question. My parents told me that a lot. So you did a lot for your career. Do you want to throw it all away? And that wasn't actually my concern because I actually wanted to do something else. I didn't know what it was, but I thought on this world tour I would be able to figure out what that is. And so no, I wasn't really afraid. I was actually hoping that it would be something different, something better, but I didn't know what.
But did you figure out what you wanted to do then?
I did. I always had a passion for social projects, so working with people, working especially with students, something that I noticed when I was still a student, because that is the age group, I think, where students are, where people are building their dreams. I want to do this in my career, I want to go there. And I thought it's a nice group to work with, and I wanted to do something with students, help them find their way. So that was the idea. That kind of took shape and formed itself while I was traveling. And so now that I'm back, I'm doing something more or less in that direction.
Okay. So let's talk about the time when you spend competing in the Toastmasters tournaments. First of all, for people who don't know what Toastmasters is, can you tell us what Toastmasters is?
Toastmasters is an international club. It's for people who want to improve their public speaking, their leadership capabilities. So it's you have this, I don't know how many members it has, but you will find clubs everywhere around the world. In some cities maybe there are even several clubs, but you will see that the format is the same in every club. You have those so-called table topics. You go to the front and someone tells you, talk about your next summer vacation. Then you have a few seconds to think about what you want to say. You have 2 minutes to give a speech. So it's basically forcing you to present in front of people, in front of your fellow members there in the club. And you're actually practicing speaking in front of people. Next to those 5 table topics, sometimes it's 3 table topics, then you have those prepared speeches. Those are speeches that you prepare in beforehand. It's 4 to 7 minutes usually, depending on what kind of speech you're giving. And then again, you're standing in front of those people and you're giving a speech. And the nice thing about that is you have some people that are very afraid of public speaking, and we call the first speech that they give, it's everywhere around the world the same. It's called the icebreaker. So you basically, the aim of that first speech is to survive on stage. You talk about yourself, what your hobbies are, and still some people are very afraid to do so. You hear that from their voice, you see the hands shaking. But the nice thing is, the more they do these speeches, you see they become calm, they improve their speech, because also everyone there attending that meeting and that speech is giving you feedback, how you can improve, whether it's about the volume of your voice, whether it's how you use your body, whether you should put in some pause or not. So I thought it was very valuable.
But how has it helped you in your career?
Actually, I always knew I could give speeches, although I also had to work on in German we call it Lampenfieber. I don't know the English word. It's basically your stage fright. So when you're standing in front of people that you are anxious, I had that too, but because of my work, I also got over it, because practice makes you the master. Actually, you become a master. I didn't have that stage fright, but I didn't also think that I could give speeches in front of hundreds of people or do stand-up. And that is something I discovered there. I joined one of the club contests there. It's called the Humorous Speech Contest. It's actually international, also the International Speech Contest. And I got quite far without knowing actually well. So this was within 1 year or something, I got quite far. And it was nice, actually. I really loved giving those speeches. And funniest thing is, it's easier when you're in front of more people. So let's say you're in front of 300, 400 people, it's easier than when you're in front of, let's say, 10 people. Yeah. Because you only need 1 or 2 people laughing out loud, and then everyone is joining. So I noticed it gave me another perspective. And then I also did some paid speeches on other platforms. So it was nice to see that I could do it, and I could recommend anyone who wants to work on their leadership skills or become a better public speaker that they try it out. It's generally about not just giving a speech, but you're giving a performance almost. You're telling people a story. You learn how it works.
And how long did you do it?
Let me see. I did it for 4 years, and then our baby boy was born. And out of solidarity to my wife, because she also joined me, she did it as well. She actually, she surpassed me even. She got better than I was, and because of kid and everything, it got difficult to join. But maybe we're still thinking about joining it again.
Okay. You talked about your wife. You were having a pretty hectic career, and then you took a break, came back, you were searching for a job. And I guess that's when you met your wife, is it?
That's true, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I was trying to get to was, if you had a career, have you had time to date other people or like meet people outside? Because most of the time it happens that people are stuck at are in a ecosystem of their job where they're only talking to people of the same profession, and it's very hard to find.
Yeah.
Of course, now it is easier to use apps and find people, but how would have a hectic career affected your chances of meeting your wife this way?
So what I did when I returned from this journey, from my world tour, it was 2017. So beginning of 2017, I didn't have a lot of my old friends around me anymore. So my former friends from high school, they had moved to other cities. So I was kind of trying to find my way, what is there, what kind of activities, what groups are out there. So I did actually use a lot of internet platforms. So there's Meetup, for example. You find any kind of platform on Meetup. Meetup Düsseldorf is very big, for example. Whether you want to go cooking or you want to do fun activities, hiking. I just joined there. Also bouldering was one of my favorites. So that's how my wife and I met. She was also into bouldering. And then we did also some bouldering later on by ourselves. We started dating, and then that's how we met actually. Got to know each other, yeah.
And if you also happen to write a book, right, that is really inconceivable for a lot of people because it takes a lot of effort and time.
Right.
Can you share some of the experience as to why you started writing a book and how did you actually finish it? Like that's itself is an achievement.
That's a very good question. See, the book is about my thoughts and the poems that I wrote while I was traveling. So I actually did it for myself. It was kind of a collection of my thoughts. I go to another country, I talk to some interesting people, inspiring people, and then I get a thought, and then I just wrote it down in the form of poems. That's what I liked. And after I got back, a lot of people said, so why don't you share these actually? Why don't you write a book? I said, well, who is going to read poems? No one reads poems in this world. You should do it. So I let myself talk into it. I talked to a few publishing agencies, and they said, sure, we can do it. It's in Turkey, so I talked to Turkish publishing agencies. And then they said, okay, so you need to give us the content, and then we do this and that. And then working on the content was the difficult part. So because you have to sit there and you have to write. It's not going to happen just by itself. You have to make yourself time, dedicate time to it. And even though it was written already, I still had to adjust a few things, put it together, decide which poems to put in, which not, what would fit. And then also I also wrote the story of how I got to do this or start this world tour. And I remember that I at some point told myself, okay, you either do it or you don't. I set myself a deadline, and I also worked until late night at night, sometimes at 2 or 3 o'clock. Sometimes I didn't sleep. I worked until 6 o'clock in the morning. And some friends said, are you crazy, including my wife. I didn't join some of the family dinners. I got I got criticized there as well. But I said, deadline, that's the deadline. Either I do it, either I make it or I don't. So I did. And I was finally, when I finished it, I was happy. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I said, here, that's the story, that's the content. You can publish it now. And if someone wants to write a book, that's the advice I can give, because you can always change it, and probably you will, along the process, you will always get new ideas. At some point, you just have to say, that's it, and then just stick with it. Because if I go back into my book that I already published a few years ago, I could still think of new ideas or say, I should have written that, I should have done that. It's never ending. So at some point, you just say, okay, it's finished.
But then how did you leave those topics out? Like you have to pick and choose, right?
It was my book. The publisher also gave me some ideas, look at this angle, and then see how you can manage this, make this story a bit better, and so on. Also, some friends gave me some feedback, and then it just happened. It's just a gut feeling actually that you have. It's your creative process.
If you had to redo that now, with your job as it is, would you find it difficult, or would it be?
Do you mean difficult as
because
in
you have a kid, you have a day job that is very demanding, and at the same time, if you had to write a book, I know you can do it because I know you personally as a friend, but what challenges would you have doing it now?
You mean writing the book next to working?
Yeah.
You mean, see, the challenge is actually sitting down and doing it. I think all of us, we all have time, even though I have a 1.5-year-old now, and your time is getting less, and you're working, and it's in a job that is not necessarily 8 hours a day. Sometimes it's more. There's also a lot of events that we do, so sometimes you are coming back at night.
Yeah.
But you always have time. If you set yourself to a goal, if you set yourself this goal and you say you want to do it, you will make time for it. You might not be attending a friend's meeting. You might get criticized there. You might not be joining a party or an event that your friend is organizing. You might get criticized there. A family dinner, you might get criticized there. But you can always make time if you really want it. And for me, it was important just to have this final thing of the journey, just to kind of get some closure, just finalize that world tour, say I'm done, I'm finished. And it was important for me. So I didn't watch movies in the evening. I did that. I didn't go to a party when friends invited. It's not easy, because these are your friends. But you just do it. You can always do it, I think.
I would like to switch and talk about one other very interesting aspect or period of your life when you fasted for 1 month. I still think that's crazy, but how does that change your ability to work or get things done? Because you were doing that and writing a book at the same time, I think.
Pretty much, yeah, not exactly at the same time. It was something I did on the journey. And it was a program actually, and it said you will be just drinking water for 10 days. And then I said, okay, so water on just 10 days, how is that even possible? You were gonna starve, right? Because in religion, in Islam, for example, there is fasting, but you eat at night, and then you don't eat anything during the day. But this was going to be 10 days without any solid food, just water. And I thought that's not possible. But then on the other hand, I did it, and it was in a group of people. They also help you motivate, because I think the first 3-4 days or something is difficult. It's called you have the fasting flu or something they call it. But then it gets easier and easier. You don't miss the food. You should pay attention that you drink enough water though and have electrolytes. And the important thing is you also do some movement, because it's kind of keeping your body to get rid of the toxins and anything that you want to get rid of. So anything that helps to the body to get rid of those, you should do easy exercise, moving, walking, hiking, even if you want to go to the sauna or take a steam bath or something, because the skin is also getting rid of toxins via sweating. So I did that. I felt so good. I said, I'm going to do that again. It's not easy necessarily, especially when you work. So I would recommend, that's my personal opinion. I did it when I was back, I did it when I was working as well, but it's difficult. Yeah. So I would recommend not to do it while you're working.
Okay.
But take 10 days off, and then it's quite an experience.
Okay. How important is work?
How important is work? That is something that has changed for me over time. Mm-hmm. So when I was still finishing university and I started working at, shall I say the name of the company? Yeah. So when I was finishing university, basically by the end of the university, I started working at Philips Healthcare in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And I was so enthusiastic. I stayed there until 11 at night, 12 at night, and my manager is an Indian guy. He was born and raised in India, so he also moved later to the Netherlands. He was also crazy like that. He was also working till late midnight, and sometimes he even brought me back home because there wouldn't be any trains left at that time. Mm-hmm. So at that time, for me, it was the work itself. I was very passionate about that work. It was business, it was marketing, it was strategy, and I liked it. It didn't really tire me necessarily. But then, as I said earlier, at some point I lost this appetite for growing in a multinational. I wasn't really happy in the Netherlands anymore, so it changed. I said I want to do something different with my life. And when I got back, I found another job similar to it, but I didn't have the same passion anymore.
But how hard was it to find a job once you're back? Because in the job market, it was like 2.5 years you have done nothing, and
yes,
people who want to take a break like you would obviously be afraid of this thing about coming back and not having anything to support themselves.
Yeah. It wasn't easy necessarily. I would be lying if I say it's easy, but I still had a good network actually from my former job. I met people here and there. I went to events. I met people there, and actually that's how I found a new job. It wasn't necessarily via applying online. I did a lot of those. Didn't work, to be honest. But via meeting some of my or contacting some of my people in my network, that's how it worked out. Mm-hmm. I had a good reference from my former jobs, so that's how I found it.
How was the stress level during this period?
The thing is, I started an own business when I got back from work from a journey. And I said I want to do my own work. So I started my own business. It was an e-commerce business. Mm-hmm. But then it was actually an e-commerce shop in health and with health articles and sports articles and nutrition, so supplements and so on. We are selling it online basically. And it was something that I'm passionate about, like sports and nutrition and so on. But then it wasn't the right work for me at that time. And because I just got back from the journey, as I mentioned, I didn't have the friends that I had before, they had left already. I didn't have a lot of people around me anymore, friends. And because this job was everything online, you're working from home, the customers you're talking to from home via email, I didn't have any human connection anymore. So I started going on these meetup platforms and so on, finding what's in my neighborhood, trying to get out, something that's getting me out of the house. Because I had been traveling for 777 days. You meet people every time and all of a sudden it stops. And that was a very difficult time. I found myself in a black hole. And I said, it's not going to work. I tried it for 1.5, 2 years almost. It was running, but I didn't feel satisfied. I said, okay, I have to do something again in a company, in a proper job. That's something that is getting me out of the house, that's getting me in touch with people. And that's what I did. It took me some time to find this job, but then it worked out. And via that job, I found where I'm working right now.
Okay. And how strange was it where you travel every day and then you have to sit at a desk in a company, not your business, but in a company and say, okay, this is my work. I have to do it. Well, how long did it take you to adjust to that?
So the process was there about 2 years until I was able to adjust again to the life of not traveling, to be sitting and meeting your friends on a daily basis, on a regular basis, let's say. But that's also why I said, instead of necessarily a desk job, I should be maybe in sales, because that is what's keeping me still traveling around. That helped me a bit. But it was still not exactly what I was, what I wanted to do. And now I'm doing something that is actually has a lot of networking, and that's actually what I like. It's creating events, it's organizing these events, greeting these people, getting new people to join there. So how long did it take me to adjust to it? I think it was 2 years or something.
Okay. Would you say you are an extrovert or an introvert?
I wouldn't say it's black or white. I would say I'm rather extroverted, but there are times when I'm just need time for myself and then get my head straight about something. So I think it's maybe 60-70% extrovert and 30-40% introvert.
What the reason why I ask you that is, you mentioned how important it is to have these networks to find jobs or to make progress in your career. And if I was an introvert person, shy person, which it would be very difficult for me to talk to people and build a network. So do you have any advice? Because you said you're partially extrovert, partially introvert. When you're in your introvert phase, how do you approach people?
I would recommend people that are introverted to meet people like me, because what I'm always doing, what I'm paying attention to, when we have an event and there are always new people joining, they hear about it online on our social media platform, and then they say, okay, I'm interested. And there are many introvert people. So I see some people, they have a higher barrier to start the first conversation, say, hi, I'm this and that, I'm doing this and that. So I pick those people and I say, look, this guy and that guy, you guys are in the same, I want to introduce you. And then the conversation gets going. What can I say to introverted people? I think it's everyone's own thing. I don't know, to be honest. I don't find it difficult when I go to an event and I don't know anyone. I just start talking to the next guy and then just chatting about the weather, chatting about their work, my work, and then somehow the conversation is going anywhere. So maybe something I would recommend introverted people: try out what works best for you. Have a few conversations that you like, some topics. Ask people how they think the event is going. Ask people whether they are organizing it. Are they also guests? That would be my advice.
Where do you see your journey going forward?
So I like the work that I'm doing right now. It's more of an association than it's a business, and it's an association of entrepreneurs. So, and that's the space, at least the platform or the space that I like. So I know it's going to be somewhere in that area, something association work. I love working with students, so that's something still I have in mind. I'm still thinking about creating a leadership school for young people with potential, and I'm also taking the first steps in translating that into reality. Small steps, not really. Haven't started, but I'm talking to people. We have an association already, but it's not really active yet. We are working on how we can do it. There are different projects that I have in mind. Also writing a next book. That is also, I'm still having my daily 1 hour in the morning that I say, okay, I have to write there. It's not moving up fast.
Okay.
But it's something you could say is more like a hobby at this point, but I want to finish it, definitely. I'm working on that. Speaking is definitely something I like. I love standing on stage and inspiring people or talking about different topics that I like. So that is also something that I want to move into. So a lot of plans, but I'm working on it bit by bit.
How has age changed your goals? And as you were saying earlier, a younger Hakan was very passionate about working in a multinational, was very focused and dedicated to his job, whereas a much wiser Hakan seems to be very focused on bringing up a community. So how has age changed your perception of what is a satisfying career?
That's a good question. And when I was younger, so say until university age, I was very idealistic. I wanted to save the world. Who doesn't? And I was creating projects for young people, doing something for the environment. And when I started working, I focused on my career. It was marketing and strategy. It's also something I liked. But then I missed the social part of this, so the things that I did before. And so maybe that was something that diminished the passion in my work. So now I'm in this area again with projects, working in this area or this space with projects again for young people, for entrepreneurs and startups that are also sometimes idealistic and they want to change the world. I feel I'm at the right place. How did it change my goals? To be honest, it didn't change, and maybe it was also the journey that kind of brought me back on track. So at some point I might have lost it while I was working. I always wanted to do it, but I didn't know how to get back into there. I always did volunteer work with the Rotaract, so it's a youth part of the Rotary Club. I also joined the Rotary at some point. But it was always little things, and I always liked the social aspect of those things. I said I want to do more of it. And actually the green scarf is something that I took with me from my journey, because green was always the color my favorite color when I was younger, when I wanted to save the world.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a reminder for me. That's you get older, but that is kind of the child in you, maybe, if you could say. So it's a bit symbolic. Did it change my perspective on work? I would say no. But you have a child, of course you have a family, you have to make also time for them. That's important. But my wife is supporting me there as well. I have to thank her for that. But the idealistic part of me is still there, and I'm wearing this scarf basically every day to remind myself of that.
So, do you think about your career in terms of that could be the legacy for your child to look up to and say, oh, my father did this. Having a child has brought in this perspective to you, or how do you see that?
It's actually something. It's not. It's actually something one of my friends in Toastmasters said. He had a child, and he said he gave a speech, and stuck with me. And he said, so this child, his child, was actually seeing him as his superhero.
Yeah.
And he said, so if he is his own son's superhero, so he will look up to him. His son will look up to him. So he has to be someone, or if he wants his child to be successful, he has to be successful himself, or he has to show him that work, striving for something gets you somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of the switch in his mind that made him work more diligently and not procrastinate, for example. And whenever I think, okay, do I feel like it? I always think of this friend's speech. And I say, mine is still young, so he's 1.5 years. Yeah. But at some point, he will also say, mother and father, mommy and daddy, they're my heroes. I want to be like them. So it does help you to move forward, to motivate yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many years have you worked at this point in time?
And I think around, let me see, around 18 years now. Yeah. 18 years.
Yeah. And always in different location trees.
I started minor jobs in Germany before I started university, but those were not really not career oriented. But then, so in the Netherlands, I started my job basically, my actual profession, I started in the Netherlands. Then I did this world tour. I got back. I started my own business. It was also still kind of related to what I studied, to my own profession. And then the last 6-7 years also, I'm still doing the work that my own profession. I'm carrying out my profession.
How is it to work in Netherlands? Because the Netherlands culture is completely different. I'm asking this for anybody who wants to come to Germany also, because it's a completely different work culture compared to the rest of the world.
I find the hierarchy in Dutch companies might be different, of course, from company to company. I don't want to say it's all the same, but I find the hierarchy in Dutch companies very low. So my manager at Philips Healthcare was vice president of cardiology, so he was quite up in the food chain, and so his manager was the CMO, or the chief marketing officer of Philips Healthcare. So they were high ranking, and then we would go have lunch together, for example. I hear that in Germany, the hierarchy is a bit higher, so you wouldn't be going to lunch necessarily with your manager. So that's maybe a difference. But then also, Dutch people are very direct. If you did something that they didn't find right, or that they would criticize you openly. In some cultures, I don't know how it's in Germany as well, but in the Netherlands it's a bit more direct, I think. So they will criticize you. It's not necessarily a bad thing, or it's nothing personal necessarily, but that's just how the way they work. I think for example, in Japanese culture, work culture, you always find 1,000 ways how to sugarcoat it, to not be offensive to the other person. That's the Dutch people are not concerned with that.
And how did you get used to that? Because you have grown up here.
I did grow up in Germany, that's true. but I studied also in the university in the Netherlands, and maybe I'm more adaptive. I don't know, or I didn't find it necessarily difficult to adapt to it. But I know that a lot of my friends who came there as expats from different countries, whether it's Peru or whether it's India or Turkey also, many of them said, this guy, my colleague, he said this and that, he's like bam into your face. He just said, no, this is not good. I said, well, that's how they say it. It's not necessarily personal. That's just how they say this thing needs to be done that way. That's my opinion. So I think it's different. Some people appreciate it because it's direct, it's open, you know exactly what they want. And others find it more difficult because it doesn't have the sugar coating on.
And as a German working in a Dutch company, do you find it difficult that your work may or may not have been appreciated? Or was it easy to move ahead? Because there is always this, as you go higher in the ranks, there is a language barrier. If it's a Dutch company, they would definitely prefer somebody Dutch speaking.
It wasn't a problem with Philips because their policy was everyone speaks English in the company, even if there are two Dutch people sitting next to each other. The email that they send to each other will be in English because it might be forwarded later on, so everyone has to understand. So that wasn't an issue at all. The other company I worked at, it was a smaller company. It was a company that was bought by a Swedish company, by a Swedish multinational, a Dutch company that was bought by a Swedish multinational. You had a lot of people in production, of course, and they were only speaking in Dutch. I knew a bit Dutch. I learned a bit Dutch, so it was enough to get myself into difficult situations, but not enough to get myself out again. But it worked out. Was it absolutely necessary to speak Dutch? I think if you're working here in Germany and you want to move to the Netherlands, you would be working probably for a company that needs English or that needs management or people in higher positions that speak English. So I don't think it will be a trouble. But then the language barrier is always a thing. If you are, let's say you are from South America and there are 10 Dutch colleagues, and at some point the conversation will switch into Dutch, and then you might not be able to converse with them. I would always recommend to learn the language, whether it's German, whether it's Dutch, but the language barrier might always be there. That I think shouldn't keep you from doing this. If it's something that you want to do, you should do it. It's always an enrichment. If you go to another country, you learn how those people live. You learn how to go through the difficult things of like bureaucracy, go to the government agencies, file your taxes and get papers and so on. And they won't be talking in English to you. They will say, we only speak Dutch here in Dutch. So it will be difficult, but that also makes you stronger as a person. You learn to cope with difficulties.
How crucial has, other than Dutch, language, how crucial was the role of knowing different languages in your career?
In my career?
Yeah.
I think in the Netherlands, the one language that I needed was English. Then in Germany, it was more important to have German, but it was the work that I'm doing right now is not so much focused on international, but rather on the German market. So I would rather say English is absolutely necessary, whether you are a German person working in Germany or a Dutch person working in the Netherlands. English is definitely one language you have to learn. And multiple languages are always a plus, of course, because there might be an opportunity. They might be searching for someone who knows exactly that language, and then you are the person who can offer it to them. It's always an enrichment, but what did I need the most in my life? English was probably the most one that I used.
Okay. And what advice would you give for somebody who's just starting, because the world is changing so much, and the careers and professions that we know of are not true anymore. So if you were starting today, what would you choose, and how has your experience till now taught you to make that choice?
It was actually a question that a friend asked me when I was still studying in the Netherlands, and I wasn't really happy with my the direction that I was heading anymore. And she said, if you would go to a library, which section would you go to? And I thought, what do you mean with which section? Well, don't think about it too long. What section in the library would you go to? Would you go to a section that is about novels? Would you go into science fiction? Would you go into environment? Was it about anything else? Because that is the thing, that is the area that you like most. And it doesn't matter what job you're doing, every job has its benefits, has its downfalls also. And if you don't work with passion, if you cannot find your passion in that job, you're not going to give 100% to it. That is, at least that's my experience. And if you don't give 100%, maybe even 120, 150%, you're not going to be able to accelerate. You're not going to be working on your career. But when you do something passionately, it will also show and when you talk to someone, your eyes will be shining. You will be talking about it with more passion. You are more enthusiastic about something, and that will propel you forward. So I would tell anyone, find something that you're passionate about, because there will be times when you feel like quitting, but it will be that passion that is kind of drawing you. So you don't always have to push then, but it's something that will be also pulling you. And that is my advice to anyone, any student who is thinking, what should I do? You might change your profession later on. You might be you might do strategy, and later you might be doing marketing. You might go into, you might become a lawyer. Later you might go into politics. So that the profession can change. But I think what's more important is also that you know what your passion, what that thing is that makes you get out of bed. That is important, and whatever profession you will be doing, if you have that passion, it will be pulling you.
Thanks for that great advice, and thanks a lot for your time.
Well, I thank you very much also for the time, for being here with you guys. Thank you.